Hey everybody, welcome to the final conversation in the invitation. This seven conversation series that we've been doing, digging in this week leading up to the launch, the release of Fully Known, an invitation to true intimacy with God that is launching tomorrow. Honestly, can't believe it's here. Can't believe we're at this birth point. I am so excited. I probably won't get a ton of sleep tonight. But I am really looking forward to being present right in this moment and introducing you all to, a friend of mine, but also someone who, when I say the way that his ministry, his message, what the Lord has sown into him has directly and practically impacted our family in tremendous ways, impacted my own journey of intimacy with God in tremendous ways over the past, particularly 2 years, about 3 years. That is not an understatement. It has been such a blessing to know and to learn under and to sort of walk alongside my friend Jefferson Bethke as he has carried out calling as well. So I just shot him a request. Hopefully he'll be able to jump on here in a second. If you guys are not already familiar with Jefferson, you may live under a rock because he is sort of always in the midst. What's up, man?
What's up? How's it going?
Oh, you're frozen.
Am I there?
Good. Can you see me okay?
Yeah. Do I sound and look okay? No.
Cool. A little bit of a delay. I bet it's going to catch up. No big deal.
Okay. If not, I might have to change locations. I'm in a remodel zone, so I tried to find the one called quiet place, but it might be away from the stuff.
Listen, you're also in Hawaii, so if you could just bring us all there presently.
That's true. I'll try to see if I can get closer to a router. But
okay.
How are you doing?
Good. I am doing great. Book launches tomorrow, so you know this vibe. You know this feeling well of the fatigue at the end of the journey.
Well, it feels like it should just be starting, but a book launch is also so much of the finish line. So it's a weird start and end.
Exactly. It's like the finish line in some ways and the beginning in others.
Is this better? Am I looking and sounding better?
You're looking and sounding great. Yeah,
That's good. No, but seriously, I mean, for all those watching, anyone who does follow us, we're really into, tech. Everything looks all pretty and nice, but that is not the case today. I am just in a remodel house that's just getting dominated and all that. And I said, hey, I still want to hop on live. So here I am.
Man, I'm so glad that you did. This meant so much to me. When I reached out to you and you said yes right away, I was like, jackpot, because you have a lot going on right now. You guys kind of always have a lot going on. But
yeah, as long as you're okay with this whole vibe, then it was an immediate yes, as long as it can be in any context. So, but that's the fun part,
It works for me. Jeff, exactly. I was just introducing everybody to you. And I need to clear the air on something because we've known each other now for
a long time.
Yeah. And I call you Jeff behind your back, but I feel like maybe you want to be called Jefferson. Which name
the opposite.
Do you prefer?
You're right. So
Jefferson.
This is not what we need to spend most of our time on, but most people don't know this. But and this is what I'm talking about. We don't need because I can go on this for 10 minutes. But my real name is not Jefferson. Actually, that was just I know. And Alyssa didn't even know that until she printed up the wedding invites that said Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson Bethke. It's just my name's Jeff, or Jeffrey's my birth name, and just Jefferson. I don't know. It was my nickname since middle school, and so I don't pay attention to I was like, oh yeah, that is not my name, but I just have been called that for a long time and. There you go. Isn't that random?
Wow, that is random. And also,
so Jeffrey's the real name, but
I wasn't aware. But
yes, most people call me Jeff.
Okay.
So you were right.
All right. Then I'm glad I haven't been just missing the mark behind the scenes for a very long time.
Exactly.
Well, I was just introducing. I know you have followers and friends who are jumping on, and there are people from my camp as well. And just wanted to introduce everybody on my end who may not be familiar with who you are. Jefferson, Jeffrey, I was just sharing before we jumped on, I can actually probably list on one hand the number of people who the message and the ministry that God has assigned to them has so directly and practically and consistently impacted my life, our family's life.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, I love learning from a lot of people, sure. But the message that you have carried really faithfully for a while, and even watching it evolve, has been one of those that just sticks and stays and really equips as well. It's equipped our family as we've sort of journeyed forward in such tremendous ways. Those who don't know, Jeff is a New York Times bestselling author. He wrote Jesus is Greater Than Religion. It's Not What You Think. Your most recent book, To Hell with the Hustle.
That's right.
And I love, maybe this is a little lesser known, but a podcast a series that significantly equipped and encouraged me as well was the series that you did with John Mark Comer, Fight Hustle.
Oh, yeah.
So anybody tuned in who's a podcast listener, look up the series Fight Hustle Inquiry. And man, it's 10 episodes? Maybe
10 episodes, 30 minutes. And we did it totally like more of like a season type thing. So yeah, it's meant to be listened from episode 1 to 10. And yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that. It's, you know, me and you both know you make a lot of stuff. Some of it goes big, some of it doesn't. That one actually surprisingly did really well, but it was crazy how it was such a fire alarm would be going off right now. So I got to find it. Is it going to keep going? For some reason, I already stopped. Okay. I'm cracking up, by the way. So for those who don't follow me, literally, we're in the middle of opening like a bed and breakfast. It's a 2-acre place. It's all this bit. And I was like, when I said yes to this, I was like, okay, it's 2 acres. There's like 3 homes on the property that we're remodeling. I was like, I know there's going to be a place to be quiet.
Don't worry. It's not coming in as loud as it seems to you.
Okay, because I can literally hear a table saw in this ear. I can hear glass breaking in this ear. The fire alarm just went off. It doesn't distract me because I'm like ADHD. I just don't want to be distracting to the audience. But yeah, that means a lot about that podcast. You know, it's crazy what resonates. And that one was such a simple, like me and John Mark, just like, hey, I think people would really enjoy this, not knowing it would do what it did. But I think like, you know, when it does well like that, it really makes you go like, wow, that was just the Lord's moving in such a simple way that we couldn't have expected. But also, like, it's really cool to see that resonance, right? When you're like, man, they're not the only, they're not the only ones that feel like this, obviously, if, like, what we were talking about resonates, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And actually, that's what those resonating pieces tie in very closely with what I want to chat with you about and sort of have you even unpack or share your heart on as it relates to my newest book that comes out tomorrow, Fully Known, an invitation to true intimacy with God, because it was actually the very biblical principles you unpacked, the very real reality of Jesus' true nature and speed and pace, all of these things that are right there in the text, but I think are easy to miss. They're all the very real foundational elements that draw us into right-natured intimacy, that clear the space for it and give the grace to even navigate that space in a world where our, you know, understanding of intimacy or relationships are fast and performance-based and, you know, nerve-wracking. Are they going to stay? Are they going to go? What does it look like? To really navigate right-natured intimacy, which is simply saying right-natured relationship with the one who made us, and better understanding Yeshua's pace and posture, and that helps us better, I think, come into peace and settle and dig in to this abiding, long-lasting, transformative love that is actually not so hasty. It's holy. It'll change everything, but it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So
and I think one thing I'll just add there is I totally agree, and I think that's something that I keep coming back to, man. No matter what season you're in, no matter how much you feel like you've learned it, resaturating yourself in you said the word pace of Jesus is such a critical and necessary spiritual discipline and formation across all times, but like hyper so in Western individualistic culture, where, because it plays on a lot of things, right? Like I think a lot of us don't realize we're formational creatures, meaning just like we we're sponges. We are mirrors. We absorb, we reflect whatever's in front of us and whatever we give our attention to. And not just those obvious things like objects, but the non-obvious things like ways of life and pace. Meaning, if you are going very fast in your life, your soul will become that, right? And I talk about in To Hell with the Hustle, like, kind of our modern version of timekeeping is actually very 200 years old max, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, a lot of benefits to that, but we're not asking the question of like, oh, we measure time down to the millisecond that no one has in any Eastern cultures, any cultures in the West before, probably Industrial Revolution and so on. And so measuring something down to the millisecond, it's not a coincidence that basically our hearts have done that, right? Our hearts are basically just this constant tick, 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 like a clock, like a watch, right? And so because we're formed into whatever we worship and whatever we put our attention to. And one of the things in the West is just time and speed. And Jesus is antithetical to that, right? And so, man, we concentrate so much on the commands and the teachings of Jesus, so important, but supplemental to that is also, the way of Jesus, the pace of Jesus, the kind of the way in which he goes about producing a life that tells those teachings and those commands. And they have to be held together. And some people go off on the other side too, where like Jesus was this perfect blend of he walked slowly, but he walked intentionally. Right. So that's a double-edged sword. Some people don't walk at all, right? They're not, or if they do, they're walking aimlessly. He walks with a very particular direction. If you actually read most of the Gospels, they're trying to lay the breadcrumbs of like, hey, he's going to Jerusalem. Like there's a very, very clear focus of like, that's where he's going. Not just wandering, right? But yet, while he's doing that, he's going slow enough that he can pay attention to every moment that he's living in, to be fully human, to be a full image bearer. And that allows for disruption and interruption. And that's the thing we talk about a lot, is if you're not able to be disrupted or interrupted by the Spirit of God, then you're going too fast.
Yeah, so good. It's so true. And I think, man, if you look at our modern pace of relationships as well, pace of engagement with one another, how quickly, how far, how deep we move into things, and then how volatile they can be, various relationships, or how toxic they can become. And we fail to realize all of these, physical, intimate exchanges we're having with friends or with a boyfriend, a girlfriend, with our spouse, even with authority figures, I think, in our lives. All of the ways that we are navigating these intimate exchanges in the natural are ultimately building the foundations, whether right or wrong, of our understanding of God's invitation to intimacy, how he loves us, how he leads us, what the pace of that engagement looks like. And I'm actually glad that you are the final conversation that I'm having in this series. It was just coincidence. I think
they've been so good, by the way. I've been tuning in. Lisa Brevere's amazing.
Thanks. I love though, because when I write or when I speak or share, it's sort of from the, here's the bigger spiritual picture. Take this to the Holy Spirit and wrestle with this, for yourself. But you are really gifted in so well communicating the practical and the actual application. And I'm glad you're the final conversation, because through this series, so many things that I've heard back, or through individuals who have been reading the book in advance, on the launch team, is sort of that desire for a bit of the blueprint or the practical. Okay, where do I start? Because one of the most disrupting concepts, it seems to people in Fully Known, is the invitation to the hidden place, to the unseen place. I mean, this book really parallels how the relational progression, but really how that covenant of marriage, even how sexual intimacy prophesies the full picture of the gospel, this invitation of bride to bridegroom, of being known and knowing God. And an essential whole core part of being known and knowing him is stealing away into the unseen place, is spending time and intimate exchange that's not
Yeah.
rushed or hurried, but is consistent and is, a rhythm of our lives and is prioritized. We talk about how, even with Mary and Martha, Jesus gives permission for concern, which is strange because we think he tells us, not to worry or be anxious about anything.
Yeah.
When Mary asked Jesus to rebuke, or when Martha asked Jesus to rebuke Mary, he says, Martha, if you're to be concerned about anything, let it be this. What Mary has found cannot be taken from her. And so he is even giving this permission to, hey, if you are going to concern yourself around anything, let it be the posture that Mary has actually found at my
That's
feet.
good.
Because
Preach.
this can't
Keep
be
going.
taken from
Keep
her,
going.
right? And so this almost non-negotiable call into the hidden place that becomes quiet and still and reverent and prayerful.
Yeah.
It's necessary to true intimacy. But that becomes the consistent question I get from people is like, how do I implement that in my life? I have this going on and this going on and this going on. What does that look like for you? What do I, do? And so much of what you've, shared and taught through the years as you prioritize Sabbath, as you prioritize rhythms, really has been the very thing that's invited me into better understanding the beauty of why God spoke those to us. And intimacy with him, greater intimacy, has just been a natural byproduct. So I would love for you to share do you hear my kids now? Because
I'm not alone.
We're not the only one making noise.
Right.
What can you share for those who are leaned in some of those very practical things that you've gleaned from the word or just from implementation that have afforded you and your family that still and quiet space where that intimacy and engagement with God can be cultivated?
Yeah. Shoot, that question I could answer for the next 40 minutes.
Sorry,
I'll do a couple.
I just asked you 18 questions in one thing.
That was good. Two things popped up in my head, and I'll talk about it. I do want to come back to Sabbath as my second answer, because that's always just such a baseline starter that just over and over again I've seen as the proof in the pudding of if you start there, it goes well. Before that, though, I think we first, like you kept using that word quiet place, and first people have to really face themselves and say, do I want that? I think a lot of us don't realize how scared or fearful we are of like the quiet place, the lonely place, the place that usually kind of haunts us, when it sounds kind of romantic, spiritually at first, and then you do it and you're like, that's terrible. Yeah. But what I would say is a couple of things is God says that's a special place, right? And one misconception I think you hear a lot of pastors and preachers and people talk about is the classic example of Jesus in the wilderness, right? Where I think a lot of us, we read that story 40 days after he's baptized, goes into the wilderness, and then he gets tempted by Satan at the end. A lot of us, I think, is like we put that in the category of like that place is bad and Satan is testing him from the very beginning. When if you really read the text, that text says that the Spirit leads him into the wilderness or the desert place, or the Greek is eremos, which can mean like just the lonely place. The Spirit says, I want to take you here. So it's not a place that the Satan figure, Satan, is calling him into. It's actually the Spirit says, I want to take you to the desert. So first of all, that's question number one is, do you listen when the Spirit says, I want to take you out into the desert? Because he should, and he does. Secondly, it was actually to strengthen Jesus, not to weaken him. So a lot of us also read that story as like, oh man, when he was really vulnerable and weak, then Satan came and took advantage of him and tempted him. Now, of course, he still won. We all believe that. But no, when you really read the story again, the Spirit led him out there. Then it says the Spirit basically kind of lifted him up, shored him up, encouraged him for 40 days. Then at the end is when he was tempted by Satan. So the way I read the story, when you go back on it, I think is a lot more like actually it's 90% the Spirit doing work and strengthening so that he was ready in that moment of test and fight, right? And then he is victorious with the word and quotes from Deuteronomy, etc. So first of all is like, what I'm trying to say there is like the biggest misconception a lot of people do is, first of all, you have to ask yourself, do I believe the desert place is Satan's place, or do I believe it's the Spirit's place? Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't really
That's good.
Think about that, but we just think like, I don't want to go there, it's bad.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, the Spirit actually wants to lead you out there. You better be ready. And some really beautiful things happen out there. Mm-hmm. 2, what does that look like then? So first of all, like, let the Spirit invite you into the eremos, that lonely place, that isolated place, not to stay there, but Jesus clearly had it strategically set in a very particular part of his ministry, right? Yeah. So it was after baptism and it was before ministry. So it goes baptism, wilderness, ministry. Yeah. If you mess with that order, it's something will break, right? Mm-hmm. You have to understand your identity first. You're a child of God. You're loved. You're seen. You're known. You're mine. You have done nothing, even literally God himself, right? Had done nothing, yet beloved. Mm-hmm. Then strengthening and wilderness and like getting that voice kind of stamped into you. Mm-hmm. Then ministry, meaning then you can do the work. Then you can do the work. If you go from baptism to ministry, usually you're a little too flaky, a little too flimsy, your first sign of test, and you cave. Right? Because you haven't had that pushing, that kind of that branding of it into you. So that, and then once you realize it is this place where the Spirit actually uses as a tool, then I think you understand, okay, well then how do I lean into this and actually set up boundaries that actually take me there rhythmically? Because you're not supposed to stay there. You're supposed to be out in the world, right? We're supposed to reign and rule as kingdom citizens, pushing back the darkness. But you can't do that well unless you have rhythmic cadence of that lonely place. Right. That can be morning time, that can be Sabbath, that can be a yearly getaway, etc. The one I'll just zoom in on right now, and we can go wherever we want after that, is Sabbath. So there's the daily rhythms, the weekly rhythms, the yearly rhythms. To me, this concept of ceasing work once a week to delight and celebrate in who God is and how he's created us, does so much on our, beyond just our spirituality, does so much on our body. Like, right? We are bodily creatures. And so when we tell ourselves to stop, it does something, right, in us. And so that's a practice, by the way, that you never perfect, but you get an opportunity to iterate 1% better every single week for 50 years. And so when you hear that should take off the pressure. Because a lot of people say, oh, no, man. And they try to make it all fancy and amazing and all this stuff. And then it just like crashes and burns, especially if you have kids. You know what I mean? Like, try it twice and it's terrible. Yeah. But that's not what you're not trying to suck out the life in that weekend. What you're trying to do is set a precedent that'll be a boundary that holds you for 50 years. Mm-hmm. That's radically different, right? So then it's like, okay, and it's like think about Christmas, right? Like, no one says, oh my goodness, that Christmas was horrible, right? Like the aunt got drunk, we got in an argument before the guests came over, whatever, right? Maybe it's just my family. But right, no one says that and then says, oh man, that was such a bad Christmas, let's just cancel Christmas. No one does that, right? What do you say? You say, that Christmas sucked, we'll try it again next year. Same thing with Sabbath, right? Like why do you not cancel Christmas? Because you know there's something sacred about that day and there's a holiday about that day. You don't even consider canceling Christmas. That's like not even in your brain. It's just an anchor point once a year that just you do something on December 25th, right? So, and maybe you're not, Christmas or not celebrate. That's a different thing. I'm just using it as an analogy. But Sabbath is like that. It's a mini holiday or a mini holy day that's sacred, that's there, and you submit to it, and that's for your blessing and for your good, right? And it's a gift too. Like Jesus says, it's made for man, not man made for Sabbath, right? But Sabbath is made for man. So like, take advantage, right? Like, don't just leave it there hanging on the shelf. I can go on and on, but that's where I would start. I don't know if you'd say anything else there.
Yeah, no, it's so good. There were several things that you said that kind of jumped into my mind. What I sort of consistently see, and what he likened even that understanding of that rhythmic withdrawal as he unpacked, as the Spirit unpacked this parallel between even natural intimacy with our spouse is, it's not just this honeymoon excited time that we steal away and come together. It is a rhythmic drawing near to one another. It is a consistent return to that hidden place to explore, to grow, to commune, to delight. And yet that place where if you want to take the physical and parallel it to the spiritual, that place of intimacy, of vulnerability, mentally, emotionally, physically, the fullness of what's really experienced within this covenantal marriage can sometimes be hard. Your messy stuff is seen. You know, it's a wrestling match at times, for lack of a better word. And we see it kind of all through the text, this invitation really to wrestle well with God. I mean, Jacob's whole identity was changed in the wilderness when he wrestled with God. We see, you know, David in the Psalms wrestling the fullness of his humanity there. But oftentimes, because that wilderness, or that intimate hidden place, or that real vulnerability with our spouse can be exposing and challenging and dynamic. I see people face that tension. And the way I likened it in the book, as we look at this parallel, is either disengage, we roll over, we're too tired. You know, we don't want to engage with the Spirit of God in that challenging place. Or we shut off the lights and we dive under the covers because we don't really want to be seen. And like, we'll engage, but maybe not where you're full exposure. And when you think about that in the spiritual, it's exactly what you just said. I was trying to find in the pages early in the book, I literally used the wording, do you want to be known? Do you want to know God in greater depth? And do you want to be known? Because if our answer to that is yes, then it's hard. Some of the things that are illuminated, some of the things that those wrestling places of really allowing authentic vulnerability, really allowing him to challenge and stretch and grow us, you know, really engaging with him isn't what we often see in marriage of just like, make me happy or else I'm going elsewhere. You know, it's dynamic. And I know that you experienced that with Alyssa. I think anyone, you know, tuned in has experienced that in right-natured relationship. But I would love to ask you, again, sorry, I asked 45 questions in this talking period, but I'd love to ask you, you know, just like you said, you have to desire it. Do you want it? Is it a priority to you? What do you think from a male perspective are some of the things that intimate engagement with God, that even that restful place, or that, you know, communion with him can cause you, or cause men, or just in general cause us to shut down to that process when there is that testing in the wilderness, you know, when there is sort of the challenging stuff revealed? What do you think are some of the things that cause you to shut down at times, or maybe just men and their wiring? And how do you, I guess, press forward in that communion, in that abiding relationship, even when it's the conviction over just the celebration?
Totally. That's a great question. I think, you know, everyone has different kind of proclivities, but you know, generalizing, I would say, you know, knowing a lot of guy friends and having a lot of guy groups and us always sharpening and encouraging each other, patterns do emerge. I think with guys, one thing you see is, well, a couple of things. First, I would say, I think in the West, guys need to be a lot more comfortable with their emotions, right? Like men are not trained to emote, to be emotive, and to understand that emotions are enormously helpful, you know, many times wrong, and many times, you know, pulled in different directions because of the bent of sin, but enormously helpful tool to listen to pay attention to not be Lord, but to, you know, as a signal. And sometimes the signal's broken, but men especially, I feel like, do not lean into that. So that's step one. I think that was a really transformative season in mine and Alyssa's marriage. I came from a really broken home, you know, single parent. So like I was just raised in survival mode. And so that's even like that times 10. We're just like, I can do it on my own. I can take care of myself. I don't need to show any weakness. And it wasn't even like a bravado. It was just like, it's a waste of time. Like if like, I just need to move on and get over it and solve the problem, right? Out of survival. And it was a really helpful, and that's what intimacy does, right? Where in marriage, it's just so red hot exposed. Like you're just so like glaring. You can turn and run away. You can harden, but there is that beautiful invitation when you're exposed to stay exposed. And in that, I think Alyssa set a really good example by constantly accepting and showing that gospel there. But I learned those first couple of years of marriage, like, oh man, like it's very helpful if I think about how I feel with that and then communicate it, rather than like, another way to put it is like 9 times out of 10, most time when a guy's angry, he's actually sad. Now he doesn't even realize he's sad, right?
Wow.
That's just literally how it comes out, right? That something just happened that turned that anger into, that turned the sadness,
Yeah.
the hurt, the wound, however you want to put it, into I'm going to respond in anger. So
Wow.
I'd say that's the first start. Is you can't get to intimacy as a man with God, with your spouse, with even friends platonically, I think, until you are just like aware, self-aware emotionally of what's going on, and just pay attention. I think don't, like, one question I am always, whenever I start feeling something that's starting to feel really like clutchy, like really tight, whether it's anger or whatever, I'm always like, well, why? Just why? Like, can I ask that question a couple of times before I, go crazy or whatever, So that's step one. Then I think, and I think this is true of everyone, but then specifically with guys too, I think a lot of times we tend to shut down. I know a lot of, men, myself included, when moments of intimacy, you're at a crossroads. When there's an invitation to intimacy, you have a crossroad to harden or to accept, right? There's no neutral with intimacy. That's what's beautiful about it, but also difficult about it. It's like exposing. It's light. It's hot. It's heat. It's fire. So it's like you can run away or you can step into it. There's no kind of like neutral. And a lot of times, guys, our defense mechanism is to run when we don't feel like enough. I know that's, when I feel like, man, the big questions, like, why am I here? Do I have what it takes? That's a really big one. I think that a lot of our males' souls is asking, do I have what it takes in this job, with this person, in this marriage, as a son? I don't know, but do I have what it takes? Now the answer to that is yes, and that's answered from God the Father. But until you've kind of healed there, then you'll run away over here. And so that's like, that has to be kind of, all constantly healed and taken, and just go to counseling, for Pete's sake. I feel like just get professional help. Everyone should be getting professional help. There's a lot of bad parts about millennial culture that I think are taking us down a dark direction. One thing I do think that is helpful, I think we're way more open with that, way more open with like, just get help. Just literally just like, you need to have someone listen to you. You need to have, someone that's professional, that knows the word, that can, is trained, and just, man, process, get healing, right? Don't let those wounds just fester, or else they'll get nasty and dark and infected. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say right there. Is there's a couple things that usually, if you lean in there on those big parts, a lot of kind of ripple effects will happen.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about, even likening to counseling, but it illuminates to my spirit too, that intimate place with God, though it may seem intimidating, though it may be out of our comfort zone, to even just be quiet for a stretch, to listen, that's where we're communing with the Spirit of God, who even defines himself in the word as counselor. And salvation, even as it translates, means healing, wholeness. And it's yes, certainly the community, accountability, counseling, all of these things amongst man have a very powerful place. But sometimes I just feel this urge to say, but you also have the Spirit of God who is inviting you into that place, not to scare you or push you away or strip you down and leave you bare and bail. These are the false forms of intimacy we've known. I mean, I have a very broken past. I know from bits of your testimony, there's brokenness in your past as well when it comes to the intimate exchange. But we have, I think, so many people based on how they interacted with others. There's this fear to that invitation. And yet what we're missing is it's this glorious call to, do you want to be well? Think about Jesus at the pool of Bethesda with the man with the mat. And the man didn't respond with his excuse. Well, I have nobody to take me down to the water. And Jesus is like, but do you want to be well? And I just see so beautifully this invitation from God as well of, hey, I'm not going to draw you into the unseen place to like mug you in the alley and run.
Right.
It may feel scary and it may feel hard and you may feel inadequate, but I'm calling you to come away with me because I am Jehovah Rapha. I am the healer. And man, I just, it's powerful for me here, even from that male vantage point. Especially the sadness turning to anger.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah,
I think even the sadness thing, like, just sit in it. That's what I mean. Like, what you said was with the Spirit. Like, that's what I'm saying. People
right.
don't. We so quickly want to solve or turn or hide or run or push or whatever, rather than just like, man, one of the best spiritual disciplines I think of my last 10 years that's like really brought me so much healing and so much hope and so much shalom is just like sitting with God. Now, 9 times out
Yeah,
of 10, my mind's going somewhere else. I'm not saying this is all some crazy special time every time. 9 times out of 10,
right.
I'm like trying to pull my mind back in. But just this practice of like, I want to sit with him. I was so trained in evangelical culture growing up to like be so transactional. Here's what I need. Here's what's going to happen. Solve that. Basically just God is Santa. But it's like, man, just like in your mind's eye, put yourself and Jesus in a room together and just sit and
Hmm.
just realize the radiance that's coming from him, right? A look of Jesus is enough to make you glow,
Right.
right? And that's a practice we just don't do. We don't actually just sit with him, just
Hmm.
hang out, you know what I mean? Like, and just be and kind of let the mind softly wander or be there or just say, Jesus, talk to me, or Jesus, be here. And that is a spiritual practice and discipline for sure. That gets a little more mystical. You can put it in the mystical tradition, but man, because here's the thing that happens. If you're saturated in the word, then in
Right.
those moments where you're sitting, I think the Spirit uses your imagination plus the word you've been saturated in to bring really, really beautiful truths, like you just said, where you or rehearse is another way to put it too. Sometimes I'll just sit and just rehearse stories that are in the scripture,
Mhm.
rehearse scripture I have memorized, not like a fast, like, oh, I need to check this off, but just like, okay, I want to be chewing on this. I want to sit here. And
Right.
that's that alone, because that's again, 2 Corinthians 4:5, where he talks about we're changed from one degree of glory to the next when we're
Yeah.
at his
Great word.
feet. You don't change by just like notice what it says. How do you change? By literally just kind of having this light come off him while you're in that presence. That's the
Right.
only way you change. That's the
Wow.
only way you change according to scripture. Is
Yeah.
is literally just this radiance, you being so close to it that it just kind of starts making you glow, and then you become Moses that comes down off the mountain, right? That's it. That's it.
It's so good. So good. I've seen in the comments as we've been talking, a couple people saying various things about Paul when you were
Mm,
talking about the activation,
yeah.
or the wilderness, the time with the Spirit, then the activation. And it actually is drawing to my mind the reality, even. I think sometimes because we're not as saturated in a lot of the truths that you've even
Yeah.
unpacked and introduced about the pace and the intentionality, we even fly through the book of Acts and
Yeah.
see this journey of Paul and think all of these
Oh yeah.
powerful, amazing, huge,
Like
transformative,
decades.
revelatory things. We're
Yeah.
like, when really, if you read and press into the text, there were years that he
Yeah.
stayed in various places.
Yeah. Well, there's the
His
Arabia visit and Galatians. And I talk about that in With the Hustle, not just Paul. Everyone in
Yeah,
scripture mostly takes on that precedent. I mean, think about even God himself didn't get to do anything noticeable till 30. I mean,
right.
that's like so above and beyond our millennial culture of like be a famous YouTuber at 19. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
just like public and fast and big and quick. When it's like God himself was in obscurity until
right,
30. He could
right,
have easily just, been cruising at 12, healing people and all that, but that wasn't his cadence. The way Moses, same thing, right? Like Moses didn't become the Moses we know until he had pretty much already lived a full life. He already pretty much lived to adulthood. Then on top of that, 40 years once he gets cast out from killing one of his own, the Egyptians. And so it's like he's not even coming back and doing the stuff that gives us the story till like 70. I don't know, right? Like there
yeah,
was so much formational, quiet, lonely place years in almost every character.
yeah,
Abraham, same thing. You can go on and on. Like there's usually the people, and I think they're connected. Meaning, I don't think most times the people that do have a big impact on the world are the people that have had, I mean, I do believe it's those people, are people that have had some season of eremos, of lonely place, of quiet, of formation, whether it be discipline or whether it just be formational.
hmm,
But man, I think that's huge.
yeah. And I think it's cool to see, because even with those long stretches and then the activation, we can even see through Paul's journey that intimate communion with the Spirit especially never ceased, even in his activation. So like what? They're about to shipwreck. He's a prisoner and everybody's in a panic. And he's the one who's like, well, P.S. An angel of the Lord came to me last night, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what we need to, have happen. And so even in that place of activation, it wasn't one that was performative or by his own strength. It still was in the rhythm of communing with the Spirit of God. It's how he discerned his yeses and nos, which way to go, not go. I know you know all these things, but it really has been, it's been profound, I think, for my own journey to observe your journey and glean these things. Because, I mean, even at the very beginning of Fully Known, what even compelled me into this deep dive exploration was the total burnout of doing so much for God, good things, right? Like kingdom building, well-intentioned things, and then coming up for air and being like, God, I feel so far from you. I am so disoriented. And that's when I came across Matthew 7:21-23. Not all who call to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. And they go back to argue with him their works. Wait, we prophesied, we cast demons, we perform miracles. And he responds to them, away from me, I never knew you. And that "knew" in the Hebrew yada is the deepest form of intimacy.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about like you didn't do enough or wasn't whatever. It's just, we're not in relationship.
Right. We're not in relationship. And I think there's so many believers probably even tuned in and watching right now that I would love for you to just encourage or, share a word with. Because there's so many, they have the best of heart intention. We're laboring, doing good things, working to build the kingdom. But because that intimacy is lacking, we're just sputtering on fumes. And, man, I would love if you could even share a word of encouragement there, because I know that's the season you moved through and brought you into this journey of rhythm.
100%. And that was the same exact same thing that you just mentioned was our journey as well, which is where that book came out of. It's funny how me and you got. That's what authors do. They struggle and have a bad season, and then you're like, well, I need to get this out, and then you write about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, I think what I think back to is the blueprint in Genesis is still the blueprint today. Meaning like how it goes bad, how it goes right, the invitations, what it means to be human. All like Genesis is so impactful. The first three chapters specifically are so critical to understanding what it means to be and do, and it's all there. It's all there. And two big ones are, it's not a coincidence, by the way, that the original invitation of God when he created the image bearers was an invitation of intimacy. So a lot of us get confused on the two trees, right? You got the tree of life, you got the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God says, don't touch the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a lot of us, I know growing up in Sunday school, I just thought that was kind of arbitrary, or kind of felt a little like, is God kind of like testing them, and you know what I mean? But like kind of like mousetrappy, like it's all, you can do everything but that. When it's like, no, it actually is a invitation specifically related to the job they were given to do, which is to go create, subdue, bring order and beauty out of chaos. And God is saying, right, He's saying to do that job, huge job, don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But then you go, okay, well, how are they supposed to do the biggest job that's ever been given to human history without knowing what's right and wrong, right? Like go create order, go create blessing, go be fruitful and multiply. They're going to need to know what's right and wrong to go do that job. And yet he says, but don't eat of that tree. And the reason is because he's basically saying, you don't need that tree when you have me. Meaning like, I am who you feast on. I am where you eat. I am where you get the knowledge of good and evil, because it's through relational intimacy, not just the facts. Now the tree, if you bite of the tree, you will have it in and of yourself. That's what it means to be God-like, is it's like, I know what's right and wrong, right? But it's actually related to intimacy. So God giving that command is not him trying to be mousetrappy, but it's actually an invitation to intimacy. It's saying, hey, will you, just like a baby, right? Like, will you lean on me so much that you can't survive without me? that
Mhm.
every aspect of what's right and wrong, every aspect of what it means to be human, every aspect of what it means to live and be a full flourishing image bearer would not be of your own volition or your own thinking, but actually just be simply because I told you so and you were in intimacy with me. So
Right.
it's like, it's actually from the beginning, it's like God saying, I want to be intimate with you, and here's what I don't want you to do so that you can be. And we make the wrong choice, right?
Yeah.
Then Genesis 3 comes along. They make the wrong choice. They eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A lot of us think we can have it on our own, apart from God. And then God, instead of shaming them, instead of, just snapping his fingers and they're gone, he actually asks a question. It's the weirdest thing, because it's the first, like, God's first response to sin ever in human history is to ask a question, which makes no sense because he's God. So why
Right.
is he asked? Like, God doesn't need to ask questions unless obviously it's rhetorical, which it is. It's
Mhm.
artistically rhetorical in that moment of God saying, if you know the question, it says, God says, Adam, where are you? Adam, humanity,
Yeah.
humans, where are you? Now, God is not asking that literally. He knows exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
But it's actually the call of God's heart saying, where are you? It's like basically God beats the same drum. He beats
Yeah.
the same drum from page 1. Like, don't eat of the tree, invitation to intimacy. You
Yeah.
did eat of the tree, and then the question is invitation to intimacy. Where
Mhm.
are you? Like, come
Mhm.
back, come home. I want you to be with me. And then he asks the second question where he says, what have you done? Who told you that you were naked? Right? And
Mhm.
it's that same thing, like, who told you you weren't good enough? Who told you you were shameful? Who told you you need to hide? Because he didn't. The
Yeah.
most primal voice in the garden, meaning the first voice before the Satan figure, the Satan, the accuser, the evil one, the snake, the serpent, is a voice that's actually calling into intimacy. The
Mhm.
Satan is the one who's pushing out of intimacy, pushing into hiding. So
Yeah.
the question is, are you
Wow.
listening to the more primal voice, the one that comes before all the other voices in that story?
Mhm.
Or are you listening to the later voices, the one that comes in later, the serpent? Because the very first voice crying over you is one of intimacy, of knowing, of
Mhm.
healing, of blessing, of goodness. And even when you mess up, it's the same blueprint where he says, where are you? You can come out of hiding. And
Yeah.
then he's the one that provides the clothes, right? He's the one that
Yeah.
actually provides the animal skin. And so constantly, man, like Genesis 1 through 3, all we're doing is repeating that for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Every question, the way God responds, what's going on, what it means to be human, we're still playing it out to this day.
He's like, come back. Man, if you could just type all that out and insert that, it ties in so well to chapter 2. It is, man, so good. I love even what we see in Genesis prophesied through the marriage.
Yeah.
So you have, Adam, you have Eve, she's taken from him. And we often like pull this scripture and we think of it just as like, here's the picture of marriage for us.
Yeah.
But it's that, the man would leave his father's house, that he would
Yeah.
take of his wife, that the two would become one flesh and they would be naked and unashamed. Well, this is actually that very picture of intimacy for all time that stands of the gospel revealed right from the beginning, because Christ left his father's house to receive of his bride, that we would come together with him and that oneness would be restored, that the
Yeah.
two would become one. And before God, through this process of intimacy with him, we would be able to stand again spiritually naked and unashamed. Man, you see me, you know me,
Mhm.
you love me, you continue to call me home,
Yeah.
to bring me back. I mean, we're on that return really to the
Mm.
garden. And man, I love what you just unpacked there. Why didn't you tell me that a year ago when I was writing? Because I would have footnoted you and given you the credit.
Right,
Um,
right. That
it's so,
is there anything worse though as an author? It's unrelated because but is there anything worse as an author though when you like just write a book and then like 2 months later you're like, dang it, that would have been amazing.
oh, that would have been chapter
Yeah.
5. Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm so grateful for your wisdom. I want to honor
Mm.
your time. You have so much going on.
No, this has been
Um,
fun.
I'm just so grateful for all that you poured out and that you share.
Mm.
I just want to encourage you and Alyssa and Kinsley and Cannon and Lucy as you guys
Mm.
continue to move forward, your whole tribe and family there. Man, you're doing
Mm.
good work for the kingdom. I don't even know if you realize the extent
Mm.
of fruit that it bears. It's genuinely transformed the way
Mm.
our family does
Wow.
life and transformed my own journey of
Mm.
intimacy, seeing Christ rightly at the
Yeah.
pace that he moves. So grateful for you.
Wow.
Thanks to everybody who jumped on If y'all aren't following Jefferson, J-Dog, if you're not following him already, give a follow. It's always really rich stuff. And again, you guys, fully known.
Yes.
Invitation to true intimacy
Get it.
with God comes
Tomorrow's
out
the day.
tomorrow.
The day.
Tomorrow's the day.
Hey, man, we're so stoked for you. Our family's rooting you on, cheering you on. You know, I think everyone knows, but we know even particularly the book launches are a beast. Even that's why when a book comes out, it should feel like the starting line, but it actually feels like the finish line just because it's so much work to get there.
Yeah.
So we're cheering you on. We know it's a labor of love. And you particularly, I think, as an author and as a writer, are so deeply prophetic and sharp with your words in a way that a surgeon is with a scalpel. And I'm just praying that blessing over you and the book. That, man, I know it's going to do that to so many people. It's going to cut, it's going to sear, but like a surgeon, it's going to heal.
Yeah.
And I'm super, super, super stoked to dig into it, pass it out, and I can't wait.
Thanks, man. I'll shoot you guys a copy very soon. I swear I'll get to that point. I'm a little behind. But thank you guys so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everybody who tuned in. And, man, praying blessings. Appreciate you, and I'll chat with you soon.
Amen. See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.